Hi everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to our midweek sales episode. That isn't quite midweek. It's on a Tuesday, so sorry about that. Oh no, I just said Tuesday. That's like a big thing in America. When an English person says Tuesday,
yeah,
apparently we sound really weird.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, isn't it?
I think weird's a bit harsh.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds like a CH rather than a TU, but you know, come on, who matters? What does it matter?
Exactly. All right, what are the midweek sales we're looking at? And by the way, these will be 50% and higher discounts. So you can save even more as you spend even more. Well, let's find out. First up, we've got 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is 70% off at the moment, down to £14.99. A very good price indeed for what's been one of my favourite hybrid adventures. Yeah, it kind of combines that visual novel but on a 2D plane, almost like an adventure game where you're walking around talking to different people, but it overlaps on several different timelines. And then you have this combat that's real-time strategy, using a simplistic art style that actually works really well for making it nice, quick and precise. Now, I love the storyline, this was incredible, and I'm not used to playing these types of games, I have to be honest. We do have a full review of this one, but I can easily say, yeah, probably one of my favourites on this list. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, as I say, down 70% to just £14.99. This episode was sponsored by Fit My Zoo, a very nice little loading game where you have to, well, fit a load of animals into a square or rectangle shape on the screen. Seems relatively simple and straightforward until you start to get snakes, giraffes and what I'm pretty sure are hippos. Now if you like little puzzle games and you're after something just to play as what I like to call a loading game, then this is one to consider. You're looking at over 90 different levels, over 20 animals, the perfect loading game for sure. Nice chilled out music, very relaxed pace, you're not worrying about a timer ticking down or anything like that. You drag the pieces into place and then if you make a mistake you can undo it and try again. And trust me, when you get up to level 38, which we did, you certainly will make a couple of mistakes. It launches on Friday and is going to have a massive discount, taking it down to £1.79 in the UK, $1.99 in the EU and $1.99 in the US. If you're interested, go wishlist it now. And once again, a massive thank you to the publisher for sponsoring this episode.
Okay, next we have Disco Elysium, the final cut, which is currently 70% off, taking it down to just £10.79 or your regional equivalent. This is a game that I've recently started playing. I know Mark's mentioned it many times on the channel, and I suppose it's almost like a tabletop RPG, or it certainly has its roots there, and you play as this detective who wakes up one day very hungover with very little clothes on and basically has to go to work and you know, start the day and see what unfolds, but at the same time he has his subconscious conversing with him all the way through.
He really does, yeah. This has a cracking soundtrack. I'm sure our faithful editor Jared will put the Whirling in Rags morning song on and you're listening to it. It's glorious. It's an interesting game in that it doesn't follow one particular genre at all. Like Glen says, it does actually, in fact that's a really good way of putting it, does feel like a tabletop RPG made into game form. A little bit like the old Baldur's Gate games, the way they took the D&D rule set and turned that into an RPG. This has almost done the same with the tabletop.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed what I've played of it so far. It's been one that has sat on my shelf for a good while, and I'll certainly pick it back up and try to finish it. But if you're buying digitally at 70% off, it's well worth picking up.
Off the back of that then, we've got EA Sports FC 24, which should be called FIFA, but they couldn't be bothered to pay for the license, could they?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, obviously it uses the same engine that they've always used. This actually uses the Frostbite engine on the Switch for the first time. The consequence of that seems to be the game halving from 60 FPS to 30, so just bear that in mind. But I do feel that in terms of having a more extensive range of options once you start playing, it was, if not completely worth it, it was, you know, an understandable sacrifice. And at what, 70% off as it currently stands? 75% off, forgive me. £13.74, just in time for the Euros. If you want a bit of football action, you could do worse. And what makes it an even better deal at the minute is that they have got a post-launch patch or update free of charge that does include the Euros, so you can play obviously as the nation's taking part at this moment in time.
We might do a lot better there, I reckon.
In a virtual version, yeah, probably. We also have Street Fighter, the 30th Anniversary Collection. This brings together 12 arcade games into one collection, ranging from the better known ones such as the Street Fighter 2 and its variants, but also includes games such as Street Fighter 3 and the Street Fighter Alpha games, as well as the first Street Fighter, which is a game that basically no one ever talks about because Street Fighter 2 came out and did everything so much better, you know? But for 12 games, 67% off, £8.24. This is an absolute bargain.
Excellent stuff. We've also have the cheapest ever price on Sonic Frontiers. Now, I quite enjoyed this. I wasn't entirely convinced by the new angle, you know, it felt like they'd kind of walked into a room and everyone was playing Breath of the Wild and they were like, oh, how can we do Sonic like that, you know? But there are actually some really strong aspects to it, and I do like some of the ways they've integrated the fast-paced, like Sonic platforming in this 3D way through these like sky rails and stuff. It's quite cool to play, and some of the bosses as well, as I say, are very enjoyable. That one at the moment is down to £16.99. That's 66% off, the cheapest it's ever been until June the 23rd.
You've got Streets of Rage 4 is currently 55% off. That goes up until June the 23rd. Streets of Rage 4 is a fantastic game. I mean, it was obviously a long wait to get a fourth game in this series. When it finally arrived, it really did live up to expectations, in my opinion. It has that lovely hand-drawn style. It has all the brute force that you'd expect from the old Streets of Rage games. Really does convey that well for a new generation. And at what, £10 odd as it is at the minute, you got campaign mode in there, and obviously you can play online as well. Well worth picking up. Really one of my favourite games on the Switch.
One of the hidden gems that I've mentioned a couple of times, and it was actually Glen that pointed this one out, it's Dodgeball Academia, which is down 60% to £7.99. That's the cheapest it's ever been. This is like an RPG set within like a dodgeball academy, is it? Is that right?
Yeah, you're at a school for dodgeball, and you have to pick a team, or you're obviously people will join you as you go through the game. And it is a turn-based RPG at heart, but you play games of dodgeball to replicate the battling, the traditional battling you'd normally have. It's very humorous, it's got a nice story to it, nice art style as well, nice and colourful. As Mark said, obviously very cheap digitally. What I will say, if you can find it, this is one that does seem to sell quite cheap physically as well. It's just one that it's hard to come across, so if you can find it, it'll probably be for a good price there too.
Lovely, the sale for that, 60% off until June the 23rd. Then there's a game that I'm so glad I've seen and is on sale. I mean, we've got it obviously already, but it's one that I wanted to play through co-op on our, and I forgot that it had co-op. It's a game called Unsighted. It's an RPG, action RPG, whereby there's this mechanic counting down till the end of time. And you're obviously trying to do something very important before that happens. There's quite a bit in here. We've spoken a few times in this list of games that have hybrid elements. This has a bit of the action combat, but it also has things like crafting. You can upgrade your character, so it has those RPG sides. But then having the co-op in there is interesting because I just don't know how that's going to feel in this type of game. So yeah, certainly one to consider. Very good. If you like things like Crosscode, then this one might appeal to you. The sale, as I say, the cheapest it's ever been, 60% off, just £7.19 until June the 23rd.
The penultimate game then is Resident Evil. This is the HD remaster of the GameCube remake of the original Resi game. This is one of the best, back then on the GameCube, I still think it holds up as one of the best remakes ever made, in terms of how it took the original game and improved it in practically every way. And this HD remaster is a lovely way of playing it. You have to be into the old school style of Resident Evil, albeit you can turn off tank controls in this one. I think they're turned off by default anyway. But if you want a more, recent addition to the series, I guess, you got Resident Evil 4 is also on sale. Both 50% off. Both worth picking up, to be honest. Get them both. Great games. Really good.
Off the back of that, we've got Grim Fandango Remastered, one of my favourite old school adventure games from way back in the day, where you play as Manny, who I can't even remember because it's been so long, whether he's collecting the dead or he's working for the company, I can't remember. But it's all set within the afterlife, basically.
Right, okay.
You know, you're kind of I'm sure you're a little detective in the afterlife. And yeah, at the moment this one's down to a stupidly cheap price. It is considered one of the all-time great adventure games. You'll have to help me out, I'm a bit rusty on it, but yeah, really good game. And at just £2.87, 75% off, an easy pickup.
Then we have Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I haven't played this one. I've played the first one. I'm relatively sure this is the sequel, but in terms of how they play, they're quite similar, aren't they? It's a Metroidvania with a lovely art style, really lovely vibe to it. Quite difficult at times, actually, more so than you might expect looking at the visuals, but really beautiful game.
Yeah, a lot of people feel like these are actually better than things like Hollow Knight, you know, and I could see an argument for that. They're incredibly polished, really well-designed games that look incredible on Switch, actually. So yeah, they've got a Studio Ghibli inspiration for some of the visuals and some of the cutscenes, and they're some of the best Metroidvanias, as Glenn says, that we've got on Switch. That's 60% off, just just £9.99 or your regional equivalent. Last but not least then, we got Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is down 70% at the moment, and it is a classic style Metroidvania. Now, interestingly, this had a lot of kind of negative press when it came out, didn't it? Because there were issues with latency and all sorts of things. And I've been keeping my eye on, there's this huge patch that was due to come out. It's version 1.5.0, which I believe is now out on the platform. And that adds in not only hopefully a few fixes, but it adds in a Chaos and Versus mode, which is, the Chaos mode is a local or online co-op where you can play solo or with a pal, listen to me,
A mate.
a buddy, a friend,
Compadre. Associate.
I can't think of another word.
No, I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh,
To complete challenges before each boss. There's a versus mode in there as well, which is like a player versus player, which is interesting. Haven't tried that out yet. There's also a bunch of new cosmetic bits. I've got to be honest, I don't really care about any of that stuff. But general bug fixes. It should be the best it's ever been on Switch. They've spent a long time getting this one out. It is a great Metroidvania, and honestly, I know the input latency and some of the lag is a bit irritating. It's still well worth this price. But I thought some of you would want to know that it has had that massive update.
I'm going to throw one more in, okay? One more, bonus one. Because I think this is the sort of one that we'd never mention if it hadn't been for the fact I noticed it whilst you were speaking. This is Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythmic Adventure 2.
Bless you.
So this obviously is a rhythm game. Very good one, in fact. You can get drums for it, for the Switch, that you obviously use
Get the
to
drums.
play it. Get the drums out, exactly right. But you can obviously play it without using a controller. It's a fantastic game. Very good, very quirky. And it's currently 84% off, taking it down to £3.99. If you want something a bit different, might be worth at least having a look at the blurb.
I might get the drums. $3.99.
£3.99, yeah.
See, I would want the drums though. I wonder if it's on sale.
Well, you see, the thing is, when it first, because I think it had a limited release over here. It's very much a heavily Japanese, but they do start to trickle over and release in other places. And they had it on sale with the drums, the physical edition, obviously.
Yeah.
Way back when now, I'm talking ages ago, and it was cheap. I remember that much. It was about 40 quid, which for this is ludicrously cheap. Now, if you can find it, you're lucky if you're not talking
really?
£100. It's stupidly expensive.
Do you own it?
No, I didn't buy it. That was the moral of the story I was getting to, is that I looked at it, went, oh yeah, I'll get that. Didn't. It's gone.
It's gone.
So £3.99 without the drums.
Not bad at all.
Exactly.
So that's it. A nice, juicy midweek sales. That's not midweek. Don't hold it against us. Let us know any that we've missed out. Well, there's been loads, and obviously we had our sales on the weekend. If you missed that one, that had some amazing deals in it. But yeah, thanks to all of you that enjoy the content, to our Patreons and members, and as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya.